Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I am doing a new style video that I'm really excited for, and I hope you guys are as excited as I am. I am here with some spring reading recommendations. Now yes, we're almost in summer. I know I'm a little bit late, but I didn't think to do it till this month and I'm very excited. So I'm going to be showing you some books that I think you should read in the springtime. Now, are these all set in the spring? I don't know. Couldn't tell you. No idea. Don't remember. But these are all books that when I look at my bookshelves and I think, what would I have liked to read during the spring? These are the ones that stuck out to me. So I'm going to go ahead and share some with you guys. Starting off with two kind of literary fiction that I think would be really perfect in the springtime. The first is The Husbands by Holly Gramazio. This was such a fun time. I don't know what it is about springtime, but this one just makes me feel very springy. And springtime is like starting anew. It's when things get exciting, when you're kind of leading into summer, and I feel like this just gives that like light, airy vibe. So in this we're following Lauren, and Lauren comes home to her flat in London one day and there's a man there claiming to be her husband. She is very single. She says, "Excuse me, what are you talking about?" But she looks around her house. Her house is slightly changed. There's pictures of them at a wedding. On her phone there's pictures of her and him together. She's very confused, but she's like, okay, I guess I have a husband. He says, "I need to go to the attic to change a light bulb." He goes up to the attic. Another man comes down claiming to be her husband. Her attic is magical. Like spring gives magical realism vibes. I went with that vibe a bit. This is such a fun time. It feels very like exciting and fun, but it also kind of like topics that I feel aren't widely discussed that are a really good time. I think this is so light. This is fun. I enjoyed it a ton. I think you should read The Husbands in the spring. The next book that gives me very spring vibes is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I don't know why, but it just feels like something you should read in the spring. In this book, you are following a series of interviews about Daisy Jones and the Six. The book follows the band in a series of interviews from their start to their end, and it feels so real. You're following their lives, you're following their backstories, and like I said, because it's set in a series of interviews, this book feels so real. Every Taylor Jenkins Reid I've ever felt, these characters feel so realistic. I almost feel like I could Google them and they'd be real people. I don't know why this gives me spring vibes, but it's so fun. Such a good time to read. If you haven't read Daisy Jones and the Six yet, this is your opportunity. Pick it up, read it. It's so good. Now, to be fair, a lot of fantasy gives me spring vibes, especially fae. They always give me the spring vibes, but I have a few fantasies that I think would be perfect to read during this season. First being The Spell Shop, which I actually just finished this past month. It is a cozy fantasy. It's a little bit longer in my opinion as a fantasy, but I do think if you like a cozy fantasy with like a hint of conflict, you would really enjoy this one. We are following Keela, who is running away from the capital because it is being burned by rebels. She worked in the library, so she is stealing essentially some spell books to take with her. She escapes to this old island that she used to live at when she was a kid. She still has a cottage that was her parents', so she inherited it. She has a sentient spider plant. There's some found family. Lots of descriptions of food and pastries and jams. She runs a jam shop and a spell shop out of this cottage. It's a very sweet little cozy fantasy, and I mean, this cover alone gives very spring vibes. Another fantasy I think you should read this spring is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. Again, if you haven't read this book yet, I don't know what you're waiting on. This book is incredible. There is a sequel to it now, which I have yet to read. I'm waiting for it to come out in paperback so they match. This book is amazing. This is one of the first books I read when I got back into reading, and I really think it kind of elevated my magical realism fantasy love. It's incredible. In this, we're following Linus, who is in charge of this department of magical youth, and he is sent on an assignment to this house in the Cerulean Sea on an island to kind of check out the caretaker and the kids and make sure they're actually being taken care of. Ends up becoming an incredible found family story, and I just this one just has such a special place in my heart. But it definitely gives me springtime vibes, especially with the kind of outdoor descriptions in the woods and the house and all of that. It's wonderful. Speaking of seas, another fantasy book that I think you should absolutely read this spring is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This one is a standalone Brandon Sanderson, so you're not getting into a series, you're not, you know, signing yourself up for anything crazy. It's just a wonderful little story about Tress, who goes on an adventure to find a man, and again, very found family. She really comes into herself, and there's a lot of really good like subplots with this as well. I really loved this one. It read so quickly. I think you should read this one in the spring. If you're ready to get into a series and you haven't read this series yet, I'm confused, but it's okay. A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This gives very spring vibes, especially this first book because you're in the spring court. duh. But in this book, if you don't know about ACOTAR, you are following Feyre. She is a human who kills a Fey wolf to try and feed her family, and in turn has to go live with the Fey as part of her punishment. And it's just, that's about all I'll say. Kind of a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but if you haven't read ACOTAR yet, where are you? Get on it. I have a couple of romances that I think you should read in the spring. The first being the 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This kind of gives a little bit of light summer vibes, but I would suggest reading this in the springtime because it is just so good. It has that touch of magical realism that all Ashley Postons have. I'm obsessed with it. In this, we are following Clementine, and Clementine is going to stay at her aunt's old apartment because her aunt has sadly passed away. She moves into the apartment, she finds a man staying there, and she's very confused, but the apartment turns out to be magical, and he is from 7 years in the past. It is so good. You need to read this one. And two romances that are two of my 5-star romances that I love forever and ever. You need to read now. They give me spring vibes. First is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This is a YA romance. There's no smut, none of that. It is very sweet and innocent. I think you should read this in the spring because it does take place over a school year. We are following Liz and Wes, and they are childhood enemies, I guess. They're neighbors. Liz has a crush on a boy and she wants to get this boy's attention, so Wes, her neighbor, decides that they can fake date to try to get his attention. I love fake dating, and this book is just so sweet, so wonderful. If you're gonna read any Lynn Painter, I highly suggest starting with Better Than the Movies. And then the last romance that I think is perfect for the spring. Now, I was looking at this and I was like, what season? But it just gives me spring vibes. It is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren, a 5-star read from me. Again, I feel like most of these romances have been 5-star reads, so if you haven't read them yet and you're a romance reader, where have you been? One is childhood friends to lovers. It's also Second Chance. This follows Macy and Elliot. When they're kids, they are like the sweetest little angels who go in a little book nook and read together all day, and then they get separated because of something terrible that happens, but then they come back together, and it's just incredible. I love in Other Words, and I think it is perfect for this springtime. Now, last I have a couple thrillers/horrors that I think would be really good in the spring. Don't know why, but I think they'd be great. First is Bunny by Mona Awad. This takes place, I feel like this could also be good for the fall. It takes place over a school year. This is a weird horror. It wasn't my favorite, if I'm being honest, but it does weirdly give me spring vibes, especially by the end. Like I said, this is a weird horror. We're following Samantha, who's at this college, and there's these 3 girls that call themselves bunnies, and she like makes fun of them, but she secretly wants to be a bunny, and then she becomes one and she learns the secrets of the bunnies. It gives me spring vibes, maybe because there's a bunny on it. I was looking at all of my Riley Sagers and I was like, do any of these give me spring vibes? Now this one kind of gives me on the cusp of spring to summer, Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. This is, again, isn't my favorite Riley Sager, but I wanted to recommend one, and I just feel like this gives light spring vibes. So if you're wanting to read a thriller horror, this does it. Most thriller/horrors give me fall, winter, but this could be a spring one for sure. This, you're following Ethan, and one night when he was a kid, he was staying in a tent with his neighbor/best friend, and the best friend was kidnapped, taken, and written off as he had passed. And it was a mystery, no one's really solved it. And one day Ethan comes back as an adult to take over the house. His parents have moved out, he's taking it over, and there's some, you know, spooky stuff that happens that makes him think, hey, maybe his best friend's back. It's a good one. And the last book that I think you should read this spring, again, I was looking at all of my Grady Hendrix and I was like, which one would I recommend in the spring? Craft for Wayward Girls. Also, first of all, I read this as an e-arc, so I've never like been able to hold up the book and show you guys my copy. I've read a few e-arcs in my time. I don't read them much anymore, but I've never bought one as like but I had to buy Grady Hendrix. I have almost all his books. I love this one. So in this book, it's mostly a historical horror, which I tend to love. We're following Fern going to this boarding house in Florida. This is back in like 1950, I think, 1970, for unwed mothers, unwed young mothers, because she's 15, and her and a few of the girls discover a spell book. It's more historical than witchcrafty, but there is some horror elements which I really like, and it does give spring vibes, mostly because every single girl's name is a flower name. So spring. So those are all of the books that I would recommend you read in the spring. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you enjoy these recommendations, especially like the quarterly recommendations, let me know. Go ahead and subscribe if you're not already, and if you have any spring recommendations for books, let me know. I'll see you guys in my next one.